Welcome to the podcast Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Mark Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. Mark will be joined by Susan Brender, CEO and host of The Susan Brender Show. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hello and welcome to the video podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Grade Success Education on the NETV network. I am Mark Hoberman, and my co-host is Susan Brender. How are you doing today, Susan?
As always, fine, and I'm so pleased to be with you again, Mark.
Thank you. Great to see you as always. Now, we have a special guest today, Bubbly Dandia, owner and founder of Turtle River Montessori. Bubbly, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in education?
Yes, I have a master's in English, and I used to teach undergraduate English until I stumbled upon a Montessori school through a friend and just fell in love with it. And I started working there, and this was way before I had my children, and this was in New York. I had my children about 5 years later, and of course knew that I would want nothing but Montessori for them. And after trying 3 different Montessori schools in the area that I live in, I realized that they were not covering the entire gamut of the tenets of Montessori. And I was discouraged, and I said, you know, I love the authentic Montessori. And since I didn't find it, I decided to start my own little school for my own children.
You know, Mark, I'm going to jump in for a second and ask Bubbly. Bubbly, would you tell our audience a little bit about what is Montessori as opposed to, say, regular education?
Traditional education, yes, absolutely. Now, Montessori was started by this physician, Dr. Maria Montessori, in Italy, in Rome, in 1907. She was a physician, she was a psychiatrist and a pediatrician, and was very interested in young children, and got very interested in how their minds work, and did a lot of research, after which she came up with this way of teaching, this methodology. What she said was that till at least the age of 6, children younger than that do not have the neural pathways developed enough to learn in an abstract way. So she designed hundreds of materials to be able to give them an experience that was sensorial, teaching them any concepts that there were to be learned, and filled a classroom with that. What she then did was she decided that having a 3-year age span in every classroom would be the way to go, because it allowed a flow of levels in terms of where the children were. She furnished the classrooms with materials that would serve a 4-year age span, so that if a first-year child was working in math at a second-year level, he was able to do that, or vice versa. If a third-year child was working at a second-year language level, that child would be working at that level. And the way it worked was that instead of putting all the children together in a group and teaching them the same thing, every child was able to go to a material that was the level they were at and be presented that material individually, one-on-one, by a teacher. The teachers in Montessori are called guides and directresses or directors. Once that concept was mastered, then the guide would go to the next material in the sequence and present that material. So in a way, it became an individualized curriculum where every child moved at their own pace, without feeling the pressure to catch up with other children, or not be really prepared to move yet before they felt an inner mastery of the concept.
And Bubbly, how many people would be in that kind of classroom?
If you would have about 28 children with 2 directresses and an assistant.
So three adults.
Three adults.
Because it sounds a lot like differentiated instruction. And it sounds like the Montessori method was way ahead of its time, because we're doing differentiated instruction now. But that's a big number. So now that you're telling me there's 3 in a room, it makes a little bit more, 3 instructors or guides, as you call them, makes a little bit sense.
Mm-hmm. And also, there was a very fine line between overdoing it with adults and not doing enough. You want the children to become self-sufficient, self-motivated, self-directed, independent, but also on the other hand, you need to have enough guides available to be able to help when they need to help. So it's actually very magical. When we typically in Montessori classrooms, you will have one-way windows where you can come and observe the children without them being able to see you. And it's magical to see how, they all conduct themselves so purposefully. They're working, towards developing themselves. They are empowered in a way in this environment to build themselves instead of waiting to be directed by a teacher. And the teacher's job also, a big part of her job is observations. She is observing what the children are going towards, where they need to be, and when to interrupt them, when not to interrupt them, when to help, when not to help, and really allow this flowering and blossoming to occur in a natural, organic way, while you stand back as a catalyst helping.
The people looking in, their guides, you're not talking about the parents looking in, you're talking about
the parents looking in.
Oh, the parents looking in, okay.
Guides are in the environment, but I'm saying when you look from outside, and you would think this kind of environment would be chaotic because there's no designated spots for children, there's no designated desks. The children are able to move about freely. There is freedom within limits, and they can take a break between lessons. They can, do a lesson, get up and walk about and peek over, another older child's work and see what's going on and go back to another lesson. If they have not finished a lesson, they will leave it where it is with their name tag to tell others, please don't disturb this lesson, I will be back.
Well, you mentioned an age span of 3 to 4 years, specifically 3 years. But what is the age range? What are the different age ranges? I walk into a classroom, what are the age ranges in this room lowest? What's the age ranges in that classroom highest?
Yes. Well, the youngest is infant, which, not many Montessoris actually have, but it is there from infant to 18 months to 3 years. And then it begins with the 3-year span, because developmentally now you can do it. So 3 to 6 year olds, which means, up to kindergarten.
Right.
And then the next is 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, which is 6 to 9 year olds.
Right. Okay.
And then it's 9 to 12, 12 to 15, and 15 to 18.
So it does go that high. It spans the whole gamut of K to 12.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And we go up to 8th grade, and we've done that for a very long time. And it's just beautiful to see the soft skills and the sense of self, and, their whole self-esteems develop slowly as they grow up. And you just see that they're different. Public school teachers will often tell us that when your children walk into our classrooms, we can tell that they are different.
Definitely. And a question, the franchise or the Montessori model, in a particular, every Montessori is K to 12, or some are K to 5, or are they all K to 12?
Okay, so the one thing that I want to tell you is not a franchise. Anybody can call themselves a Montessori school if they have been able to master, the pedagogy, and they're able to present that. Now, of course, there are organizations that will certify you as an authentic Montessori, And so you have American Montessori, you have International Montessori Association, you have many different organizations, but typically the American Montessori Society is the one that we all get certified by.
Okay, and where in New York were you?
I was in New Rochelle.
Okay, because I lived in Rockland County for many, many years.
Oh, yes.
I actually went to school in Yonkers, New York, 400 years ago. But, yeah, there was a Montessori there, and I'm glad I asked that question. I don't believe that many people who don't go to Montessori
know
either what it is or that it's not a franchise.
Yes.
That it's more of a method or something like that.
It is.
So there's many different aspects of Montessori, as you just pointed out. But in your opinion, because you experience it as both a parent and an owner, or
Yes.
an instructor, guide,
Founder.
Okay. What are some of the important aspects, or the most important aspect to you, of a Montessori education?
To me, what speaks to me really deeply is that in a Montessori environment, there has to be unconditional respect for the child. The child needs to feel nurtured. The child needs to be given life skills. We need to make sure that their sense of self is healthy and wholesome, and that you are never bringing negative attention to them if something happens that's not appropriate. However, we go back and you give them the life skills by engaging them in conversations. We have a certain way in which we discipline, which is very positive. There is no calling out on a child in a group of other children. You're helping them become self-aware. And that, to me, is the biggest gift you can give a child, is to start learning how to be self-aware. Who am I? What is my place in this universe? How does a community work? This is their first brush with society, with social situations. A school is the first brush they have. And here they're trying to figure things out as to how things work. How does the community work? What do I need to do to keep my community intact? What do I need to do to keep things moving and for everyone to feel respected and to feel that their needs are being met? How can I be of help? So it's a very organic and a holistic environment where you will see that you will feel the harmony and the peace in a classroom setting, because the children are growing up to understand how you must respect each other, you must respect each other's beliefs, you must be helpful, and what do I do as a student when I get my feelings out of control? And that'll happen. They are children, they will be angry, they'll be upset. How do they handle that? And that's what our role as guides is, to show them it's okay to be angry. You will feel anger sometimes, but let's talk about what made you angry and how you could handle it better next time. We also have what we call, for example, a peace mat, where the children, if two children have a conflict, they will stand on the mat on either ends, and the steps are written on it for the younger ones. And they talk about what happened before we had this conflict. What brought us to this point? What did I need? And how could I have done it differently so I could have achieved my goal? And once they understand each other, they come together and shake hands and wish each other well, and hopefully have learned from that particular interaction something about themselves and something about the community and how it needs to be handled.
Well, it's a powerful lesson, because self-awareness is the theory basically behind emotional intelligence, which is really usually for adults. So to start that in a younger, I love the term community, in the young community, that's a very, very powerful lesson for sure.
Right.
So thank you for that.
And also remember, the 3-year age span does serve them greatly on an emotional level, because they come into the classroom as the youngest child. They become the middle child, and then they become the oldest child, and they get to play those roles which they cannot in their own families. They are where they are. But here they become the mentors when they are the oldest ones and they're helping the younger ones. And the younger ones are looking up to the older ones, which does a lot for the older ones. So it's a very beautifully set up environment where it seems to work so well that it's been around for over 100 years. And it's all over the world. And the Montessori classroom looks identical no matter where you go. The only difference is if it's not authentic, the energy will not be what I am talking about.
Right. Gotcha.
So,
And what are some of your success stories you can share with us today based on, you know, the Montessori whole aspect of your philosophy?
the beauty about Montessori is that it absorbs a lot of differences in learning, differences in personalities, challenges, you know. It just absorbs everyone because of the nature of its holistic and, you know, a peaceful, nurturing approach. So if you get a child who has learning challenges, for example, you do not want to bring attention to that. What you want to bring attention is to the fact that they also have so many beautiful gifts. Right. And this is what the child needs to become aware of is, I don't only have challenges, I also have gifts. And so do we all. We talk a lot as guides about our challenges and our gifts. And so the children start to feel comfortable in their skin. And so many times I see children coming in insecure, not confident, not sure of themselves. And by the time they graduate middle school, you know, at our graduations, each child prepares a speech, which we do not look at. We expect them to write it. And when they speak, you see what you have brought into the world is a child who is sure of himself, is comfortable in his skin, knows who he is, and is comfortable with the challenges and is working on it and is celebrating his gifts. So, you know, not to go too far, my own children who I started it for, my older daughter who I started it for when she was about 7, is now 33 years old. And my younger one is now 27 years old. And I see how different they were as children. Mm-hmm. One was a complete extrovert, one was a complete introvert. They happened to both go to the same high school, and both became leaders and became, you know, their SGA presidents, and were equally successful, even though they were both so different. And they're doing beautifully in life. And I don't consider getting good, you know, straight A's and going into Ivy Leagues as a measure of your success. The measure of your success is that you are successful as a human being, as a member of the community, as somebody who has been able to bring something to the world. And, you know, and that's what I see in our children, you know, they want to make a difference. They know that they can with at least one of the intelligences from the 9 intelligences that Howard Gardner talks about. Right. Everyone has some intelligence, and they need to know that they can use that for the good of the community and the world and be good global citizens with the help of that. And that's the spirit that they become adults with. And did your children do their entire K-12 in Montessori? No, my children went up to elementary only because at the time I did not have middle school. Okay. But I see, you know, to just give you a little idea of me and what I felt growing up, was that the messaging I got as a child in a culture in India that's very culturally true of some cultures is that you just listen to what I'm telling you. Do what I want you to do. Right. Don't think for yourself. And I felt that it took me forever to find myself. So when I had my children, I said, it should not take so long to find yourself and be confident in who you are. I want my children to know who they are from a young age. And the conversations I would have with them at 12 and 13 and 14 were absolutely eye-opening for me. And it made me feel, it gave me the joy that these children are on the right track and they know what's, where they're going. And my older daughter went to Harvard and then went to work for Teach for America because she wanted to give back. And, all her friends went into, very lucrative professions.
Finance, things like that.
Finance and things. My younger one is working for Google. By the way, just so you know, the two men who started Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, when they were interviewed by Barbara Walters to ask what they attributed their success to, and they both said, we went to Montessori schools. We knew what we wanted, we knew who we were, and we knew that if we put our mind to something, we would be able to do it. And that was beautiful. So it's exciting for me that my daughter works for that company.
Yeah, well, also, what you're speaking about is really the foundation. It's interesting because I also have a master's degree in English education. I also taught in New York. But the foundation, but my wife also was an instructional aide for many years in K to 3. And the foundation is everything, because there is a disconnect sometimes I see between students and what they do. And I just think we should start following some of these things, because when she says things such as, I tell her what happens in school, and she says, well, what we tell our kids is you get what you get and you don't get upset. Now, if I said that in a classroom with 11th graders, some of whom are 250-pound football players, I'm gonna get thrown out the window. But if there's a way to say that, and get a message. So it sounds like a tremendously strong foundation.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, this may be an unfair question, but how would you finish this sentence? The most important thing for young students to learn is, now it's Bubbly's turn.
Never be afraid of failing. That failure is a step towards success, and it has profound lessons to teach you. You need to go through failure. If you're not failing, you're not working hard enough. And if you remember, John F. Kennedy used to say, those who fail miserably achieve greatly. And not being afraid to fail is, I think, something that if you can start making them believe that from the beginning, there will be no end to the horizons that they will go to.
That's a great thing, because there's such a stigma to failing and not succeeding. And I worked, I also have a staff training business for camps, and I go, and there's so many camps where there could be an hour softball game. There's no score.
Right.
There's no winners, there's no losers here, you can't fail, that kind of thing. And I just think that a little got lost in the translation along the way.
Yes. And that failure to fail will make them go so much further, so much further.
How is the pandemic affecting young students and their parents in your school?
The younger students, I think, are really, having a hard time with it. I think the fact that, there is a fear in the air. Everybody's wearing masks. They're not being able to go to school. Some of them do. Our schools have been open, for 2 months now, but there are many of them who are not, coming back to school yet. It's like taking away a part of their childhood and their learning environment, and it's taking away a big chunk of their life. Of course, some of them, the ones in kindergarten and up to 8th grade are doing virtual with us as well. And fortunately, we've been able to really make a beautiful virtual program where the children who are in the classrooms are actually part of that, and they're talking constantly to the children who are virtual. I mean, the technology has come such a long way that the older children can still feel the connections and the socializing through that. But the younger children are certainly, getting the short end of the stick. It is hard for them. And the parents. Because
it's difficult, and it's difficult for the teachers as well.
It is. It's very difficult for the teachers, and it's just changed the world, as you know, and it's changed the children's world more than it has changed ours even.
But they are going to learn to adapt, and there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Before we close out, Susan, anything you want to add or ask Bubbly today?
All I can tell you is this, that children are very resilient.
Yes.
And even though we impose our own approach and our thinking on what the children are going through, eventually the children are just troopers, and they will come back and they will, learn from it. And we should never underestimate the resilience of the human spirit.
Well said. Well said. Bubbly, where can people learn more about you and what you do?
They can go to our website, turtlerivermontessori.com, and it has everything about the pedagogy, about how this works, about our stories, why we do what we do, etc. And they could actually put in Montessori on YouTube, and there will be hundreds of videos talking about it. That is probably the better way to go in.
Gotcha. Bubbly Susan, I can't thank you enough for joining us today and sharing your expertise with our viewers. And it really was that expertise. And just people have a little bit of knowledge maybe about Montessori. You just, in a short amount of time, really helped clarify so many things. So thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And to the viewers, remember to reach out to us on social media. Look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find me, Mark Hoban, on LinkedIn. So again, thanks to Bubbly Dandia for being with us. Susan, as always, thank you. And viewers, don't forget to tune into our next podcast. This is Mark Hoberman, thanking you for watching the podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, on the Great Success Education channel on NETV. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. To contact Mark, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.